Hey guys, Doug B here, your average axe-wielding hack. Welcome to part 7 of my 20 Questions for AustinBuddy interview. Now this is the final segment of the interview. In part 6, we talked about his thoughts on continuing to do the free updates, his new tone pack, and why some of his presets have special characters at the end of the name. All right, let's get into part 7. Let's see here. We're getting toward the end. Believe it or not. Do you have any other tips or tricks that would be beneficial to the folks in the fractal community that you'd like to share? I mean, you have been dropping some amazing knowledge bombs here during this interview. Anything more that you'd like to add?
Yeah, for you guys who make your own presets, there are a couple of little things that I do that are really important that help with the sound. And we talked about this earlier in this interview, Doug, about sculpting it, where you make sure the lows are cut off in the right spot and the highs are cut off in the right spot. And then you might want to boost the mids a little bit. We talked about the global EQ curve. So I think that number one is that you should always play your presets at the volume you intend to play them on stage when you dial them in. That's number one. And that's because of what's called the Fletcher-Munson curve effect. And that says that we hear differently at higher volumes than lower volumes. Our perception of what we're hearing. And I know it's a truism on the forum, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. If you dial these in your bedroom and you go to a gig and turn them up, they are not going to sound the same. They will sound great in your bedroom. You're like, what happened? I can't hear myself. You have to dial them in loud. And by loud, I mean at least 92 dB on a good dB meter. And you can get an iPhone and an app, and you can put in you can get a dB meter easily for free, okay? But you have to do that at least 92, 93. And what you'll learn there is I had too much bass. I didn't have enough mids, because you're trying to sit in a band context. You know all this, but a lot of people are still learning this stuff. Now, if all you do is play at home and play along the records, that's cool. Don't worry about it. Then if it sounds good to you, be happy. Really. But if you're trying to take a preset out and go out and play live, you need to do this. And so I tend to think that, everything, you need to roll everything off at least at, 70. How am I going to say this right? Because there's a couple of places I do this. So I use the high cut and the low cut in a bunch of places. Let's go with that. I use it in the cab block on the overall cab. So I'll cut off stuff under 70, under 100, under 112, 125, 130, whatever my ears say. And I'll roll off stuff over 10 usually, and sometimes a little lower if the amp is a little too spiky for me. I don't want anything over 10,000 kilohertz. And then I'll also do that in the cab IR. I won't just leave the cab IRs flat at no cut at all. I will actually go in and I'll do a slope on those as well. And, usually just a 6 dB slope for the highs and a 12 dB slope for the lows works, sometimes an 18 if it's severe. But the other secret weapon, I think, a couple other secret weapons I can share with people, and these are in the presets that I do, is use that input EQ on the amp page. I use that a lot to cut out flub and bottom there. It can really tighten up your amps and make them sound presentable, because it's kind of what they're doing in the studio is they're cutting off all the low stuff when they push it. So I mean, I'll cut 100 there, at least somewhere between 70 and 100 to start, particularly in a clean sound. I usually leave a little more bass for clean sounds. But as the gain goes up, you notice your amps start to get flubby with the bass, right? And so this is where you go into input EQ and you start raising that to maybe 150 or 200 or 233 even. And you notice some amps, if you go there, already have it preset. They're made that way. They cut off automatically and they add the bass in the power amp section. But others don't. And so I use that a lot. It's one of the things you pay for when you're getting these. That input EQ, particularly in Live Gold, to tune it. The other thing I like to use is there's a dynamics page. And there is... on the Axe FX3, there's an input dynamics, and that can be very useful, just a little bit. But there's also an out compression. I think that's on all 3 units. And for clean sounds, just put a dab of that. Just put it at 0.2, 0.25. And the cleans will hang longer like they would on a nice black face when you play it, a real one. That sounds good. The cleans will hang longer. You don't really need it if you've got a lot of gain, but when you don't have a lot of gain to get a clean, you still want that sweet sort of hang, right? A little, as the note goes. So that's another trick that I play with. I really play with the speaker impedance curves. I don't just always go with the default. I'm thrilled that when Cliff did the speaker curve update, it doesn't automatically change back to the default, because that would have made my life a nightmare trying to update Live Gold, because I probably changed about 30% of the amps, 35% of the amps from their defaults to something that I thought sounded better with the IRs that I had picked. So and I use speaker compression there at about 1 and speaker drive at about 1 or 2. You really can't have the difference much between 1 and 2. And then I use the speaker thump a lot at about 2. If an amp's really metal and heavy, I'll lower that. And then if I've got an IR that doesn't give me the bottom that I need, despite all these other things and opening it up and all that, I might go in and use the proximity that's still in there on the second page of the cab tab, and just add a little bottom. That's not, I don't do that very often, but I don't really mess with negative negative feedback and supply sag. You can. That actually can change the way an amp feels, and there are some amps that's fun to do. The negative feedback has a huge effect on the sound for a lot of these amps. I don't really mess with the transformer. You can do that if you want to match speaker impedance and stuff. On the Van Halen stuff, I'll use the Variac, and I will mess with some of that stuff because that's how he did it. So I tend to leave I do set the boosts where I like them, but you can move those up or down, the amp boosts. I tend to use neutral. I like the RC boost, but I just tend to use neutral for everything. I use the grinder in just a few amps. I'm trying to think of what else. I don't mess with the tone stacks mostly unless it's part of the amp, like where there's 2 different kinds of tone stack defaults you can do in it. So it's getting easier is my point, from where it used to be 10 firmwares ago, where I had to kind of do some manipulating to kind of get it to do what I want it to do. It's a lot easier now. Most people can literally just live on that main tone authentic page. And the other thing for guys to really remember, and it'll vary by amp, but the interaction between the master volume and the gain is absolutely critical for getting the sound that you want. If you're playing modern metal, do not move that master volume up way high. It'll flub everything out. You get your distortion from your preamp, your gain, your drive. Keep the master low and then just turn the level up of the overall preset. But you will hear amps totally change moving like a master volume from like 3 to 6, or higher. Some amps, of course, default on 10, and you can leave those alone. But that master volume has a lot. When I did a lot of these sounds, I had to play a lot with that and the interaction of that with the gain setting. So that's a little something. Those are some tips.
Okay. So the next question is, if the folks in the fractal community are interested in finding out more about AustinBuddy, where should they go?
Oh, just to my website. And then you can go follow. You can also look at forum threads. There's 80.
And is it just AustinBuddy.com?
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's probably what you were really asking me. www.AustinBuddy.com has all the products on there. There's a little bit about me on there. But also go to the YouTube channel. I have some videos there that are kind of good for beginners. Kind of like what you're doing. You're doing it better than I'm doing it. But I walk through my Naked Amps Axe Effects 3 video has a real good tutorial on all the Fractal software suite stuff of, FractalBot, how to use it. A lot of people go, well, look, I don't want to overwrite the factory presets, and I said, look, there's a blank bank. Install a blank bank in bank A, and then you can reinstall whatever you want in blanks B and C and D, and then you can pull the presets over you like in B and C and D into A and make that your working bank, right, where my favorites are. And you can swap stuff out in B, C, and D with whatever you want, factory presets, AustinBuddy presets, other people's presets. But kind of think about bank A and put a blank bank in there to start, and then install stuff in there. And you can always re-download the factory presets anytime from the Fractal website. Sure. So, but, I've got a Facebook page if you want to follow me there, and I've got an Instagram account that's AustinBuddy13. I don't post there very much. I probably need to do a little more of that. So,
Okay.
I'm not trying to be social media present. I'm trying to do the work and get it out. The forum is my primary tool to try and let people know what's going on, but not everybody's on the forum. And there you go. You're disappeared.
There I go. Yeah, but you can still hear me though, yes?
I can.
And we're back. Okay, question 20. And it's the final question. Brisket or tri-tip?
Brisket.
Brisket.
Yeah. I'm in Texas, man. What did you think I was going to say?
Yeah, when we had our farm in Tennessee, there was a butcher shop down the road that also had a small restaurant, and they were from Texas, and all they served was brisket. And when I had that, I was like, ooh.
Austin and around this area, Hill Country, brisket, brisket capital, barbecue capital of the world, some people would say. No offense, Tennessee people, you do make better pork ribs, Tennessee people. But as far as beef goes, beef brisket, beef ribs, around where I live, I mean, there's 5 places here that'll have brisket that every time I have people come from out of town, I serve to them, they're just like, oh my God, I can't believe how good this is. So, of course, you don't want to eat it every day. Not exactly health food.
That is true. That is true.
Maybe once every couple of weeks it's good. And I do think the fatty brisket tastes better than the lean brisket. So.
Oh yes, fat means flavor.
Yes, it does.
Absolutely.
Indeed. So in fact, this morning I made both some crawfish etouffee and some bison chili. So it's my Texas and Louisiana combination here. So.
Ooh.
So I'm set for the next couple of weeks with good eats. But it's a good question, man. Brisket.
All right, well, I guess that does it then. We are done here right now. And again, like I said, for dropping these amazing knowledge bombs and like everything, it's just an amazing amount of information you have dropped here. Yeah, so.
You really helped me in getting a bunch of this information out that nobody wants to read a big, long, page of all this stuff. This is a lot more entertaining and fun to do. But I also, as I said earlier, I appreciate what you're doing to help this make this magic box more accessible to so many people. It really is the gift that keeps on giving, and you're really helping some people, they're not necessarily technical people that are walking into this, feel like I got somebody that I can rely on that can help me hold my hand and do this, and I don't feel stupid, because, it's a deep box. It's complicated. I still learn stuff every day on this. The other thing I'd probably be remiss in is not giving a plug, and you may have done this on your own, but giving a plug for Yek and the wiki that he does is, that's worth flashing up for people. That wiki is really brilliant. His amp guide, there would be no Naked Amps without the amp guide that he did. And his Drive Blocks guide is going to be really helpful. And when I do the Effects Warehouse stuff coming out. So Yek is one of along with Matt Bacone, of course, Fractal, Yek is one of my gurus. And then there are a bunch of other guys I learned a lot from: Cooper Carter, Ross Roslin, of course, Leon and Bergs. And I'm sure I'm missing somebody. Nobody, please get offended at me. But we've had some really good people contribute on this, and it's great. I love the Fractal community. Unlike some other places on the internet, everybody really does root for each other and tries to help, and they don't, get into pointless arguments. We need more civility. We need more civility in this world, like we've got on the Fractal forum, and not less.
Exactly.
So it's a good thing.
Well, again, I want to thank you so much for joining me here. This has just been great. So there you have it, guys. Part 7 of my 20 Questions for AustinBuddy interview. Now you know some more of his special tips and tricks that he shared with you. You know where you can find more information on AustinBuddy. And you also know if he prefers brisket or tri-tip. Again, I would like to thank AustinBuddy for his amazing contributions to this interview, the incredible amount of knowledge he dropped, and just the great work he does overall for the Fractal community. Now, we had a great time doing this series, and we've talked about doing more. Now, you do not want to miss those when they come out, so go ahead and hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell. All right, guys, I will be talking with you again soon.